Welcome everyone to this webinar. I'm very excited to be here with all of you today. I'm Vanessa, I'll be your co-host today. I'm here with Elia.
Yes, hi everybody, thanks for joining.
Now that we talked about in what state our Earth is and what sort of planet we are left with, we all want, I think, to find solutions, and we want to learn about the people who are actively working towards the solutions. So the first is Ivan. He's going to tell us about a very vital topic, which is the way we grow our food.
So hi everyone, I'm Ivan Peri. I represent the association Pantera, which is a non-lucrative organism whose purpose is the creation of a forest in the Swiss region of Fribourg, as well as the promotion of agroforestry in Switzerland. Our goals are to integrate biodiversity and global boundaries. So why are food forests relevant in the context of preservation of wetlands? Today, the scientific community is slowly realizing that arguably the most important element of humidity, and hence wetlands, seem to be the tree itself. So plants, through their photosynthesis and their sweat, are quite literally enhancing the conservation of water by cooling the atmosphere, which subsequently creates condensation zones around the leaves and more generally around the forest. This phenomenon represents a virtuous cycle that results in the optimized conservation of water in a highly plant-populated territory, and has proven to be extremely efficient, even during hot waves. After a certain point, these huge masses of water will not be able to stay in the system and will, in a way or another, flow. This is what could be a possible origin of sources around the world, and therefore rivers. To put it more simply, evidence showed that it's not because there is water in that a forest exists, but water flows in rivers because there is a forest. With a food forest, we would be able to find ways to optimize this natural phenomenon and increase our chances to preserve wetlands. And here in the slides, you can see there's an example of what it could look like in China. And you can see that the result is quite spectacular. This happened in 15 or 20 years, I believe. It takes time, but you can eventually get there. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for talking about how we could grow our food in a way that is a bit less harmful. So that is very interesting. I think we have a few reactions online, right, Elia?
Yes, there is our viewer, Buvan, who is concerned about the political issues involved in all these this dialogue about the planetary boundaries and also the challenges that we are facing.
We could switch now to Valentine, your project, because you work in the Swiss Parliament. Yes. You're trying to put those planetary boundaries in our constitutions.
I ask that the concept of global aims be integrated into our constitution and our legislative system. This should help to bridge the gap between action plan and the actual state of degradation of ecosystem, climate change, resource depletion and pollution levels, both in our own territory and elsewhere. It's very important, this concept in our legal system to reinforce the concept of durability. But the concept of durability is already in the Constitution, but after 3 decades, we see a lot of greenwashing. This concept of planetary limits, planetary boundaries, can give us the solution to put our society, our economics into the respect of these limits. These limits define the viability of our planet for us, for the life. So it's not a question of opinion, it's just real fact.
Yes, thank you very much, Martin. I think that is a very important theme, how the politics play, what the role they play into the decisions we make. We're now going to give a word to Simon Connolly, and he wants to talk to us about the Niagara River corridor, where he is really active. So Simon, thank you for joining us today. Could you tell us a bit what you do?
Hello, my name is Simon Connolly. I'm a high school student in Williamsville, New York in the US. The State University of New York in Buffalo's UB La Response Environmental Clinic. They basically made this activity for my high school's environmental club, and now we're expanding it out to the wider community. Basically, it's everyone goes to the Niagara River corridor. They meet at the wetlands. So they made a bingo board of the various wetlands and the species and the plant life. And it really engages the community as everyone is searching around for these wildlife to get bingo, to get small prizes that we give at the end. And it shows how much people care when they have something to care about. So we held an event last May among my environmental club, and everyone was very engaged. No one really knew much about Ramsar until that day. And it was very interesting because they learned very quickly about how important wetlands can be and how important one that is so close to their home is. And then we also held an event this past month in October among various universities. Like there are a few students and professors and like middle schoolers and high schoolers. A large range of people came out to the Niagara River Corridor, and we did this event again with the bingo boards. And they were using their phones to like look for various plant life and animal life to like confirm that they got it right. And then at the end of the October event, we actually had like sheets that they could write what they learned about Ramsar on. And it was very interesting because they all talked about like how amazing their wetland was so close to their home, like how much biodiversity there was. It was really interesting to see. And I think that if we can bring awareness to wetlands and Ramsar and how the degradation of those is really impacting our climate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon. That was very interesting. I think it's very hopeful to see that all the generations are kind of working towards the same goal, and it's really, really cool that you're so active and you're still in high school, so that's very, very cool, I think. We're now gonna talk with Patience Nabukalu, who's coming from Uganda. She's also a climate activist, and could you maybe tell us about the importance of climate awareness and the work you do?
Thank you for the opportunity, first of all, for giving me this chance to come and present myself. My name is Patience Nabukalu. I'm a climate and environmental justice advocate, Fridays for Future Uganda coordinator, and a member of Fridays for Future MAPA. I mainly work in the field of protecting wetlands through a campaign called Stop Wetland Degradation. I'm involved in the fight against plastic pollution in our natural resources. We all know how wetlands have been turned into dumping sites. And through this, I've been like doing a lot of cleanups on Lake Victoria shores, on Lake Victoria wetlands, and also awareing people on how they can relate and live sustainably with the wetlands. To me, every time it rains in my country, I feel terrified about what is going to happen next in my life, my home, my family, my mother who is asthmatic. Every time it rains, it is always flooded. I couldn't go to school because my mom is asthmatic, so I had to stay home to drain the water out of the house and the grocery shop we had. Also take care of my siblings. I always hated God for this because I was told having erratic rainfall was God's plan until I got to know climate change linked with wetland degradation. So you see, we have grown up in a climate anxiety. That's why I'm one of a few activists this side fighting tirelessly to see we live in a safe planet, a planet with good food, fresh water and clean air. But unfortunately, we are the same people that have always been denied access to conferences, the need to listen to our voices. It's always a fight to access funding to these events, and yet we are hit the hardest by the impacts of climate change. Resources and platforms should be given to those that are doing a lot of work on ground to see these natural resources survive, those that have a heart and humanity. All across the continent, people's lives and livelihoods are at a great risk from the increasing intensity of storms, drought stands, flood. This is even more heartbreaking given that the entire continent of Africa is responsible for less than 4% of the global emissions. We need to wake up and protect our natural heroes, the heroes of the planet, the wetlands. It turns out that protecting and restoring the world's wetland is one of the most effective and cheapest way to harness nature for the climate change fight. I call upon everyone to stand up with me and the rest of the world protecting wetlands to act urgently. We need change, and right now.
Thank you so much, Patience, for this very important speech on justice and injustice of overstepping those boundaries. It impacts all countries, but it doesn't impact them the same. And it's very important to talk about this.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. We are going to move on to our next person, Lise Pinault. So Lise, could you please tell us a bit about what your research is about?
Hello everybody, thanks for having me. So I am doing a PhD on the contribution of French peatlands to the 2050 carbon neutrality national goal. To give you a bit of context, peatlands are natural carbon stocks because globally they cover 3% of total land surface, which is a very tiny fraction of the land surface, but they contain 300 to 500 gigatons of carbon. And that is because these environments are constantly waterlogged, so there is very few oxygen available in the environment for decomposition of organic matter, which means that throughout the century, the organic matter tends to accumulate faster than it is degrading, forming the pit. But the thing is that all over the world, peatlands have been largely affected by human activities, especially from cultivation, peat exploitation, or draining. So there is a major stake because when peatlands are degraded, drained, for example, the water table tends to lower, meaning that the decomposition processes can start all over again, which emits a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. We know that degraded peatlands emit from 5 to 30 tons of CO2 per year and per hectare, which is quite a lot. And the good news is that with restorations of peatlands' hydrological functionalities, by rewetting the peatland, for example, by filling in the drains, we can really reduce these greenhouse gases emissions. In France, the public demand to restore this ecosystem is quite strong. The thing is that with the current knowledge we have regarding French peatlands and carbon stocks, we cannot prioritize area for restoration. As you can see on the map, it gives us an idea of the regional distribution of carbon stocks in France. And it is very, very helpful when we want to know which sites to restore first. And that are the goals of our projects for the next 3 years. We want to really build a national database about French peatlands. At the end of the PhD, this database should help us with getting a better knowledge of French peatlands, regional distribution, their characteristics. It will also help assessing the status of French carbon stocks, determine which peatlands are major greenhouse gases emitters or may become so in a close future. And we will propose a functional and participative decision tool for decision makers, funders, and managers of natural spaces that will allow them to prioritize sites to restore first. So I thank you for your attention.
Thanks for this very interesting presentation. Thank you for the work you're doing as well. We're going to now talk about a very interesting project from Benin. We are going to talk with the GEVEV group, Green Youth and Employments for a Green Economy. Could you please tell us about your very interesting project?
Okay, thank you. My name is Bangola Limata. I'm a main physician of GEVEV NGO.
I think we have a few technical problems. So maybe, Elia, you could tell us a bit about this project?
Okay, so the GEVEV project, as Limata was saying, is based in the Basse Vallée de l'Ouem Biosphere Reserve. One of the problems there is the massive proliferation of this water hyacinth, and the people from GEVEV are trying to produce different kinds of products based on the raw material of the water hyacinth, and they're creating many things from bags to clothing to compost. And they're also training young people to become guides in this ecotouristic circuit they have been able to create. So being able to join sustainability, biodiversity, and the use of resource to create something useful for the community as well.
I'm so sorry, Limata, we had a few connection problems, but we heard a little bit and Elia told us a bit about your project, so thank you so much for the work you're doing, the very important work. So Hélène, I know you work for Energia. Could you maybe tell us a bit about your work and what your firm does for the environment?
Okay, so Energia is a startup that has developed economic model that helps Swiss municipalities to reach energy independence. So we work on the public infrastructure services. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so it's a real like circular economy model that is concrete. So you can like tomorrow you can sign up and have this on your municipalities. Mm-hmm. So we really need to think about this and also think about bottom up way of thinking. Mm-hmm. And well, in Switzerland, because we have this federal system with municipalities and cantons and the federal, we need to use this.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for the work you're doing. And so I think Sophie wants to react to what has been just said.
I will maybe add a word that is local. Sometimes we have solution at local level, local level, but slowly by slowly increasing themselves. And I think these solutions are quite interesting, local solution. It's also important to accelerate the transition. Maybe we can manage to practice ecological economy. And thank you for all your solutions, and I find it very inspiring.
Thank you so much, Sophie. I think we are coming to the conclusion of our webinar. I would like to thank all of our audience who are following us on YouTube, all of the people who came on Zoom and who presented their project. I would like to give special thanks to our experts online as well. I would like to thank all of our young speakers, all of the people who really put the work into bettering our future. So we will meet soon for a next webinar on health problems for young people. So you can write to us if that's a subject that interests you. And finally, thank you all for coming and for staying with us.